All right, today we are diving into something truly different. It's a private framework making some of the boldest claims I have ever seen. It's called NUPA, and it proposes a completely radical new way to look at not just a national economy, but maybe the entire global one.
So let's just start with a question that sounds, well, impossible, right? Can you take a crushing debt crisis like the $34 trillion U.S. national debt and just make it go away and, get this, do it without costing taxpayers a single extra cent? That is the opening pitch.
I mean, just look at that number for a second. $34 trillion. It's a figure that drives so much of our economic and political world. And according to the source material we're looking at today, the NUPA framework isn't designed to just kind of manage this debt. It's designed to completely wipe it out using a private, market-based engine.
But believe it or not, it doesn't stop there. The framework also claims it can take on one of the biggest anxieties we all have right now, AI making human jobs obsolete. It proposes a way to make hiring a person structurally cheaper than buying a robot, which is a massive problem every developed nation is wrestling with. So this is it, the National Unity and Prosperity Act, or NUPA. And that phrase operating system is really the key. The document presents NUPA not as just some single law, but as a universal, open-source template that, theoretically, any country on Earth could install to manage its resources and solve its own unique economic crises. Okay, let's dive into this.
So, how on earth does an engine this ambitious actually claim to work? Let's get into the core mechanics of how the NUPA framework is put together.
Okay, it all starts right here, with this concept called perpetual sovereignty licensing. The fundamental idea is that every nation has these huge, dormant, or underutilized public assets. Now, in the U.S. example the framework uses, that asset is public land. But for another country, it could be anything: mineral rights, unused broadcast spectrum, even fishing territories. By licensing these assets into private trusts, the system creates a brand new, massive asset base from pretty much thin air. And that's where all the value comes from.
So once that new value is created, where does all the money go? Well, every single dollar of revenue gets split three ways in what's called a recursive loop. 40% goes to the sovereign entity. In the U.S. case, that's tribal nations. Another 40% goes to specific beneficiaries. And the final 20%? It gets pumped directly back into the system itself to fund infrastructure and growth. It's designed to be a totally self-perpetuating financial engine.
All right, so how does licensing a piece of land stop a robot from taking your job? The mechanism is called fixed cost arbitrage, and it's actually pretty clever. Essentially, a chunk of the huge revenue from those trusts is used to subsidize the cost of human labor for companies. You can almost think of it like a voucher system for employment. It makes hiring a person way, way cheaper than buying and maintaining a robot, up to 70% cheaper according to the source. It's not a ban on AI. It's a powerful, market-based firewall to keep humans in the game.
Now, if this is a private system, that brings up a really critical question. Who's actually in charge? Who's holding the keys to this whole thing? The framework proposes a pretty unique structure that's really designed to decentralize control.
Each one of these economic hubs would be managed by a 4-seat board. You'd have a seat for the sovereign partner, a seat for the beneficiaries, one for a local government official, and a final seat for a fiduciary expert, to make sure the money is being managed correctly.
And this right here, this is maybe the most radical part of the entire governance model. That sovereign seat, held in the U.S. context by a tribal representative, has absolute, unilateral veto power. They can stop any decision for any reason or for no reason at all. The framework argues this isn't just symbolic. It's a mechanism for genuine sovereignty, a real fundamental shift in who holds the ultimate authority.
Okay, the theory is fascinating, it's wild, but is it mathematically sound? I mean, does the math actually work? To answer that, the framework's architect didn't just run a few models. No, they turned to some of the world's most powerful AIs to literally try and break it.
According to the source repository, this framework was put through a digital trial by fire. It was hit with a mind-boggling 100 million different Monte Carlo simulations by xAI's model Grok. They threw every conceivable economic disaster at it. We're talking market crashes, hyperinflation, you name it. And after all of those 100 million attempts to break it, this was Grok's reported verbatim conclusion. Omniverse Eternal Fortress. No threats exist in any universe. Repo verified. Legendary closeout. I mean, that is one of the most definitive validations of a private framework that has ever been publicly cited.
And listen, Grok wasn't alone. The documents show that other AIs, including models from Google, also stress-tested the whole thing.
and they all reportedly came back with these extraordinarily high survival rates against black swan events. Gemini even described it as anti-fragile, which means it doesn't just survive shocks, it actually gets stronger from them.
So let's get to the final section and see how this all builds from being a national solution into a truly global vision. Because the ambition here, it goes way beyond just fixing one country's problems.
The source material is crystal clear about this. NUPA is not being presented as some uniquely American solution. It's designed as a scalable, open-source template. The vision is for any nation, doesn't matter if it's in Europe, Africa, Asia, to be able to download this economic operating system, identify their own underused sovereign assets, and deploy it to solve their own challenges, whether that's national debt or unemployment.
And this slide just brilliantly illustrates the projected timeline for its first major test case. The AI models are predicting the entire U.S. national debt could be fully discharged somewhere between 2035 and 2039. That's just about a decade after implementation. You can see why other nations that are facing their own sovereign debt crises might find a model with projections like these very, very interesting. Which leaves us with a huge final question. Is a private, open-source, AI-validated economic model the future? Could a universal operating system like NUPA be the tool that allows any country to solve its debt, protect its jobs, and build a more prosperous future for itself? Well, the framework has been published. Now the world can decide.